Once upon a time, in a small African village, there lived a poor but hard-working boy named Kofi. He lived with his elderly grandmother, who loved him dearly and taught him the value of honesty, kindness, and hard work. Every morning, Kofi would wake up early to fetch water from the river and help his grandmother with chores before heading to the farm. Though they had little, they were content and always shared what they had with those in need. One hot afternoon, as Kofi went to the river to fetch water, he noticed something unusual. A beautiful, shiny calabash was floating on the water, spinning slowly as if it had a life of its own. Curious, Kofi picked it up. Just as he was about to throw it back into the river, he heard a soft voice. "Kofi, do not throw me away," the calabash spoke. Kofi jumped back in fear, looking around to see who was playing a trick on him, but there was no one there. Who said that?" Kofi stammered. "It is I, the calabash," the voice replied. "Do not be afraid. I can grant you one wish, but only if you promise to always be honest." Kofi hesitated. Could this be real? Was someone hiding in the bushes, watching him? But deep in his heart, he felt that this was no ordinary moment. After thinking carefully, he said, "I wish for my grandmother never to go hungry again." The calabash glowed with a golden light and replied, "Your wish is granted. From now on, whenever you place me on the fire, I will cook a delicious meal for you and your grandmother. But remember, your blessing will last only if you remain honest." Excited, but still unsure, Kofi carried the calabash home. That evening, Kofi placed the calabash on the fire. To his amazement, steam began to rise, and soon the sweet aroma of delicious food filled the air. The calabash overflowed with warm, well-seasoned stew and fresh yam fufu. His grandmother clapped her hands in joy. "Oh, my dear Kofi, you have been blessed. But remember, great gifts come with great responsibility." Days passed, and Kofi and his grandmother never went hungry again. They shared their food with the poor and continued living humbly. Greed and envy in the village. However, it did not take long before the villagers noticed something unusual. Kofi and his grandmother had no farm, yet they always had food. One jealous neighbor whispered, "Where do they get all this food? Something is not right." Another villager added, "Maybe they have discovered hidden treasure." Soon, word spread, and the village chief heard the rumors. The chief was a greedy man who loved wealth and power. He sent his guards to Kofi's house to investigate. The guards arrived at Kofi's home and demanded, "Tell us, where do you get all this food?" Kofi hesitated. He knew he had done nothing wrong, but he also feared that if he told the truth, the greedy chief would try to take the calabash away. But then he remembered the calabash's warning. Blessings last only when honesty remains. Taking a deep breath, he said, "It is a magical calabash that grants food as long as I remain honest." The guards laughed. "A talking calabash? Do you think we are fools?" They grabbed the calabash and took it to the chief. That night, the chief placed the calabash on the fire, eagerly waiting for a feast. But instead of cooking, thick black smoke filled his palace, making everyone cough and choke. Furious, the chief threw the calabash away, believing it was useless. The next morning, as Kofi went to fetch water, he saw the calabash floating on the river again. "Kofi," it whispered, "I have returned to you because you kept your promise. But remember, greed and dishonesty will always destroy blessings." Kofi smiled, knowing he had passed the test. He took the calabash home, and from that day on, he and his grandmother continued to live happily, always sharing with those in need. The greedy chief? His selfishness cost him the gift, and he remained forever hungry for more, never satisfied.